let's talk about school. I just want to start off by saying how important school is. I know that it can be very frustrating, annoying, all of the above, and more. I understand that. Trust me, I understand that. I just want to talk about education and learning and school in general today. So I just want to start off by saying I've been in school my whole life almost. Not obviously when I was a baby, but from the ages 3 to 21, when I graduate, I will have been in school for 18 years, which is a long time. Like all I can remember, I've been in school. So that's like pretty crazy. I'm graduating in a few months. That's pretty scary. So I've just been thinking about education a lot recently, just like the institution and like how people learn things and all of that. And I've realized recently, and this is kind of like obvious, but I've just realized like once I graduate, I'm not going to be learning anymore in the traditional sense of school. Like I'm not going to be going to a class and listening to a teacher and taking notes and taking tests and writing essays. Like I'm not going to be doing that anymore. So if I want to learn something, I just have to do it on my own time, which is like obvious. But at the same time, it's like if I want to learn about something, I have to go and learn about it. Like I can't just take a class on it, which is like interesting because my whole life I've just taken classes on things. Whether I've wanted to take those classes or not is besides the point. But what's also really cool about that is you can literally choose anything you want to learn about. You can choose, like maybe you want to learn about Germany in the 1500s, or you want to learn about Kenya in the 1500s, or you want to learn about what it was like to be a woman in the Qin dynasty. Like you can learn so many different things, and all of those were history, but you can also learn about botany and physics. If you want to learn about those things, you can learn how to knit, you can learn how to buy a house, you can you can learn anything basically now. And if you want to do those things, you have to go out of your way to learn them, which is like, yeah, obviously, but I don't know. It's just like interesting. As someone that has been in the education system their whole life, I'm just not gonna have this anymore unless I like take a class in something, but that's not like how I'm planning to spend my day-to-day life, you know? And kind of going back to that history idea is that today, more than ever, I'm in the US, by the way, so this is applying to the US, but still applies in general. It's so important to know history. Like, it's so important so that we don't repeat it. And there are certain things that are happening that are reminiscent of other periods of history, and it's just so, I don't even know how to talk about it, but like knowing that things have happened and then seeing them happen again, you're like realizing like what path we might be going on, or like what might be happening, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just so important to know history, even just in a general sense. Like you don't need to know specifics or like the nitty-gritty details, but it's really important to know history. And so since I'm in college, I have a lot of experience being in college. I feel like I hear a lot of people, well, not a lot, but I hear some people sometimes talking about how college is a scam and it's not worth it, and you shouldn't go to college if you aren't getting a certain degree or whatever. And while there is some truth to that to some people, it's also, college is a very personal decision. And I just want to say, as somebody that is studying a social science, I am really glad that I've studied this. And although it may not lead to a job in the same direct way that something like engineering might, it's still so valuable in society. Like I can't even like describe how important the social sciences are. Like sociology, I'm a sociology major, and it's just so important to know those things. And I feel like if I hadn't taken these classes that I've taken, I wouldn't understand the world in the same way that I do. And so while college may not be the best choice for everyone, that doesn't mean it's not a good choice for someone else. So I just want to say that. And kind of related to that, in the US, there's always been this general vibe of anti-intellectualism. And if you don't know what that means, that's like people making fun of other people for being nerds, for having interests like sci-fi and Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars and, you know, whatever else makes someone a nerd. I don't know. Wearing glasses, like, it's not, when you step back and you look at these things, it's like, okay, those things really aren't like that different than like sports, like really not that different. But there's just been this, like, people have just passed it down every generation that if you're smart, or if you do smart type things, or you have interests in certain things, you are labeled as an outcast or whatever. Like, when you're a kid and someone makes fun of you for doing homework, like being interested in the things I mentioned before and being called a nerd, and like a nerd is a bad thing. It's just so interesting how the US has this vibe. Like, other countries, as far as I'm aware, don't have the same kind of thing. The US just is like a special case, like in most cases, and not in a good way, I guess. And I don't know if it has anything to do with, like, in the past, like, the uneducated people in the country didn't like being told what to do by the educated, or, you know, like, whatever. Which I can understand that, you know, but at the same time, it's like, just because someone's educated doesn't mean that they're unworthy, or whatever the right term is. I'm not really sure. It's just something that I've like heard of, and like anti-intellectualism, it just makes no sense to me why you would want to support that. It doesn't make sense to me. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And like, even though there is this vibe of anti-intellectualism, it's not everywhere and it's not everyone, but there certainly is some type of thing with the Americans not liking intellectuals in some scenarios. And so with that, education is more important now than ever. It's so important that there is access to material and being able to learn about what you want to learn about, and being educated and knowing your rights, your history. Being educated makes you more aware. It makes you aware of when people are taking advantage of you. If you're not educated, you don't have the same awareness, potentially, of what is happening, or what could happen, or what has happened. And I'm not only talking about being formally educated in like college. I'm also talking about just in general, like, you don't have to go to college to understand these things, but just being aware of society and like what's going on is super important, because knowledge is power. And when you're aware of whatever topic, you are knowledgeable, obviously. So going back to what I keep saying is, you're aware of when bad things happen, or when things are going on that don't make sense. Like, you have a better background in being able to wrap your head around it, or potentially see what solutions there could be. And this is in society, but also in general in your everyday life. When there's an issue, you potentially have a better way of going about things, because you understand people or situations, problems, you have problem solving skills, all of these things. And so, yeah, knowledge is power. And knowledge and learning is more accessible today than it ever has been. Most people have devices that they can Google stuff or watch YouTube videos or whatever it is. And if you don't, you probably have access to a library, and those facilities have computers that you can use. They also have tons of books that you can read. And so there's just so much information that's widely accessible for free. So we have the power today to learn things that our ancestors probably didn't have at some point in history. And so it's very much a privilege to be able to access all of this information. Also, people all around the world don't have access to this information. So I think it's really important to access the information that we want to access through whatever topic it may be, like really whatever topic. But we have access to it, so I think we should do our best to use it, and educate ourselves in whatever we want to educate ourselves on. And lastly, I'm just going to end this by saying that learning is fun, especially when it's a topic you enjoy. Like maybe studying biology in high school wasn't fun, but you don't have to study biology, outside of school at least. You can study how to grow tomatoes. You can study, maybe study isn't the right word. You can learn how to grow tomatoes. You can learn about the Qin dynasty. You can learn how to change a tire. You can do all of these things. You can do all of these things. And it's just so fun. It's fun to learn new things. I personally feel like. And so yeah, I just wanted to end on that. Comment down below if you want. Obviously don't comment if you don't want to, but if you want to comment down below, I would love to hear your thoughts on this because I think it's really interesting. Education in general and how people feel about it, I think is super interesting. Right, that makes sense, doesn't it?